What is in a name? That's the question that we're talking about today. What is in the name that you use to identify your business, your program, maybe some other products that you have on your webpage or in your business? We're talking about names today because it's interesting. And the question I actually have for you is, how important do you think names are for your business, for your services, for your products, for any programs you offer? How important do you think they are? It's interesting because we can think of them as something that just we pass along as we hear what things are called. But then when we have to name our own products, our own programs, our own business, it can stop us in our tracks. And it can take a long time for us to figure those things out. And that is us putting off additional hard work as we build our businesses, as we sell our products. So today, I want to talk with you about naming a business or a product. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is because I'm working on this, and so is my friend and colleague, Jen Cincurak. Gosh, I hope I pronounced that right. Let's bring her up here. Jen, did I say that right?
You did.
Fantastic.
Hi, everyone.
So this is Jen. I'm going to have Jen introduce herself in a second, but she and I are both in the middle of naming our products and programs. And this is a conversation that people usually bring to the table after they've done the hard work. They get to the end and then they say, this is what I went through. This is what helped. And Jen and I are in the middle of this right now, where we're right now naming programs and trying to figure out what makes sense. And this seemed like the right time to have this conversation. So without further ado, here is Jen. Jen, could you tell us a little bit about where you are and what your business is about?
Sure. So my background is as a naturopathic doctor here in Canada, but my business, I'm not actively practicing. What I loved doing in my practice, and now I do in my business, is kind of coaching people around mindset, because I love neurology and everything to do with brain science. I really geek out over that. And rather than waiting for a patient to come in and be like, oh, this big trauma happened, or I want to change this my whole life around, then I realized, no, I just want to work with those people. So I've been doing this kind of coaching, creating courses, membership, that sort of thing for the last handful of years. But what's going on with me right now that I'm working with changing is that I have really focused on entrepreneurs, helping entrepreneurs around mindset. So like, oh, why can't I move forward with putting myself out there? Or why do I have issues around money blocks? Those sorts of things. And I love working with that. However, it's come to the point now where I have lots of people coming from different places, and they're not just entrepreneurs. And the last time I tried to sell a very entrepreneurial specific product, it didn't go as well. And people said after, I'm not an entrepreneur, that doesn't apply to me. And so I'm having to rethink some naming, as Susan said.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things I wanted to be clear about, because we were talking about this in the background a little bit earlier, is exactly what are we changing, right? So we've got our business names, and that's not necessarily what we're changing. It sounds like we're both changing our program names. Is that right for you?
A little bit yes and no. So my business is registered under the Conscious Entrepreneur Incorporated here in Canada. And my website is yourconsciousentrepreneur.com. But this is what I'm thinking of changing. So kind of, I'm not just changing a program, I'm changing the way that people see me, and the way they will see me and the way they come to me potentially.
Okay. So you're changing your brand.
Yep.
Okay, so the brand and then the programs that fall under that. And I'm in the middle, so I'm going to pop this up here too. So my business name, legally, is susancz.com, and that's where people can find me online. But the program that I'm looking to change, so I offer a membership and some courses, and the membership is currently known as the Introverts Marketing Academy. And the program, there's like a feeder program into that, a course that you can, that I'll be offering that I haven't named. It had a name before and I haven't decided what to call it yet, but it's a course about how to market your business, not just as an introvert, but when marketing scares you and when you find yourself procrastinating or getting locked in perfection because of the intimidation of marketing. And so I'm trying to name that program, as well as I might be renaming the membership, which is the Introverts Marketing Academy. And it's up and running like that. But the reason for me, and I want to ask you this, the reason for me to make these shifts is because it's not exactly just for introverts. It's absolutely for introverts who struggle with their marketing, but it's also for somebody who may be an ambivert. So an ambivert is halfway between introvert and extrovert. A lot of people don't know that word, ambivert. And it's somebody who is not quite an introvert, not quite an extrovert, but they are more introverted when it comes to their marketing. So the word introvert might not register for them or resonate for them, but they're dealing with the same problems. So I'm like, oh, it's a little bit broader. How do I encompass that? Right? And it's about fear and finding joy and finding ease, and I got to figure that out. But Jen, what's the driving force for you when it comes to changing the names?
For me right now, the driving force is that I don't want to leave people out who are already part of my list or people who follow me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want those people because there's a large number of them because of some of the work I've done, let's say specifically around money mindset. A lot of people who follow me for that, but they aren't entrepreneurs. They work a 9 to 5, etc. They don't want to become an entrepreneur. So I want them to feel welcomed. And I also don't want to limit myself. Like, because I work with mindset issues, it helps with a host of different arenas of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to be able to help people in all the ways I feel passionate about and not be like, no, I'm only allowed to talk about these entrepreneurial skill set that people lock themselves in. And I really only wanted to talk about that 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I really thought that I would want to talk about that forever. But, this is how it is, life as an entrepreneur. And I need to expand and broaden. And this is how it is now. So I am contemplating changing the name.
Okay. And I hear you. I mean, that's an important piece, is who am I now and where am I going? And if we can name, there are specific programs, like I offer an email marketing program, it's going to be email marketing. But as I go through life, if I start to broaden, so Cheryl's watching from YouTube. Hi, Cheryl. Thanks for being here. And she says, I get that your business has evolved. Yeah, our businesses evolve. And even if we think that we're going to be able to do this forever, we need to leave room for that evolution. And that's what I hear us both saying. So, excuse me. So, okay, nice. Any other thoughts about how you're evolving that?
One of the big things that I've been thinking of, and maybe for the couple of you, for the handful of people listening, you might feel the same way too, is you want it to be like, how can you grow into it in the future, Susan? Like you said, like, how do I, in 5 years from now, be like, no, why did I change it to the parenting thing, or how did I get so specific again? And it's a bit of a back and forth, and I'm sure you are all thinking this because you need to have a niche. It's really a good idea to talk about results, etc. But also you don't want to lock yourself in so that you have to change again.
Yeah.
So what's a way that you can change, still keep your brand, but move inside of that? Those are the things I'm thinking about personally.
Yeah, and I love exactly what you're saying. I was thinking about this before. Specifically, let's say you have a candle company and you're making candles, right? So you could call it the candle company, but what if 5 years down the road something changes and you decide that so if you switch from making candles to teaching people how to make candles, you're still under that candle company idea. But if you then start selling scarves or offering some service, now you're outside of it, and now you've challenged your brand. And there are 3 pieces here, at least 3 pieces that I want to identify. There's the business name, like what you put it on legal paper. There's the business name that people see, like the URL you're using where they just find you online. They search on Jen, they search on Susan, and this is like our homepage of our business. And then there are our products. And that home page and business, there's a branding there as well. And then there's the products we offer, which also may have their own little mini brands, right? So allowing in that middle ground of what they find online for us to not lock ourselves in. So that's why I went with a personal brand. And we're going to get into talking about personal brands in a little while, but that's why I'm susancz.com, is I was like, how broad can I make this? Because I know that I will switch things up. I will evolve. I change things because I get bored. So I need to give myself that flexibility, right?
Can I tangent here for
Please
a second?
do. Yeah.
Because you guys might all find this interesting. So people who are entrepreneurs are often a very specific, they don't have to be, but we often have a neurotype. Like we feel more calm about taking risks, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that Susan's been really helpful at reminding me, or we remind each other of sometimes, is that it's okay to need something new, to, as Susan said, get bored. Like, this is a very common part of being, like, when you're someone who feels okay taking risk and trying new things. I'm learning that's something I need to keep in the back of my mind when I'm creating a, a brand name.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
And
there's nothing bad or wrong or, I don't know, selfish or silly or thoughtless about you if you're in this as well.
I love that you've identified that as a neurotype. And I think that that can be an indicator of somebody who would make a great entrepreneur. Somebody's like okay with change, or even leans into change, or at least doesn't object to it. I know when I was, in my 20s, especially, it rolled into my 30s as well, I would be like suddenly in a place where I needed change, and I would move across the country. That's how big of a change I wanted to make. And I literally have moved across the country a bunch of times. I was living in, outside of Philly, and I moved to Montana, and I was like, oh yeah, I needed that level of change. And now when I need that level of change, I think I've learned, and it also takes less to make bigger change, but I've learned that I can make smaller moves and get that rush that I need of, okay, this is novel. I need that novelty in my life. But I love that that's a neurotype. It's not something, it is, a part of what maybe makes us better entrepreneurs, because we can flex with that change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just wanted to mention that for anyone who might be feeling like, I don't know, they're flighty or something. No.
Yeah.
This is very common. Mm-hmm.
Let's ask that.
As you said, a strength.
Let's ask that. So as you're watching, whether you're watching this live or even if you watch the replay, tell us in the comments how you feel about change. Do you lean into change? Are you okay with change? Do you hate change? Let us know, because I'd love to know how we all feel about that. Jen, how do you feel about change?
Good and bad. Scared and not scared. Like excited and a little bit scared.
Okay. That's fair. I think that that's totally fair. And just because a person likes change or leans into it doesn't mean that it's not hard. Moving across the country was one of the hardest things I ever did. It really made me feel new. And changing the business, allowing the business to evolve or pushing it to evolve can do the same thing, I think. So, Jen, is this for you an evolution of the business? Is that what you feel you're going into as you're making these changes?
Mm-hmm. You're saying it like I wouldn't have put it that way, but I think, yes, that's what it is. And again, allowing me movability within the brand of the business, and allowing for future evolution.
Okay, nice.
Like I was saying earlier, when you're thinking about what you're going to name your brand or the course or whatever, what evolution might it need down the road, and can you leave space for that too?
Yeah, I think leaving space for that's a powerful way of putting it. And I think that's largely the point, is leave space for the possibility of where it might go by not locking it in. I think that that's fair. When I named mine the Introverts Marketing Academy, I was like, I locked it in. And I loved the name. I think the name was right for starting. And there's another thing. I don't think that if you name something wrong or you need to change the name, it doesn't mean it was changed. It doesn't mean it was wrong before. It's just that there's evolution. Does that sound fair to you?
Absolutely.
So
awesome. It also sounds like very self-compassionate. Again, entrepreneurs, really high performing. We expect a lot of ourselves. It's okay to give yourself a break, cut yourself some slack.
Yeah, that's a great point, is not being hard on ourselves in these situations, because it'd be really easy to be like, so let's we're going to shift gears. Actually, I think you're right. You're absolutely right that it is about compassion. And I'm going to grab Cheryl's comments here, and then I'm going to move us to a different question, actually. But Cheryl is saying, so she's answering the question, change is good and also depends on what the change is. That's right. Yeah. And it's nice when you have some control. But she also says, in business, making changes to incorporate other parts to my business. So Cheryl's got a few things going on in her business, and she's shifting to adjust for that. So here's my question for you, Jen. With this need to change the name, and by the way, for anybody watching, we are going to go into some guidelines that we're both following and some things we're experiencing as we're coming with our new names. And I want to talk about transition as well. But that's kind of where I'm going with my question, is how is this need to change your program name, your brand name, how is it holding you back? And how are you moving forward despite that? So there's two questions there. But how is it holding you back? How's it getting in your way?
This is such a great question. And I'm sure everyone listening can identify with this because this is such a great way to procrastinate. Mm, this is a wonderful, it's like designing your logo. The logo's not perfect, so I can't launch my business. The most ridiculous thing ever. And we totally see it in other people. But
Mhm.
then when it's ourselves, just like you said at the top of this, when it's us making the names, and suddenly it can be so hard and we hold ourselves back. So for
Yeah.
instance, right now, one of the funny things I'm thinking about is I want to launch another course or offering to my people soon.
Mhm.
But do I want to change my name first? Do I want to wait to change my name after?
Mhm.
But I'm just going to launch it. Like I'm going to do it. And because it can't be another thing holding me back. And I
Mhm.
know all of you entrepreneurs out there listening feel that you get it. You know this. You've seen someone do it. You've done it yourself. So there is that, oh, wait, should I wait? And then doing the proper thing and have everything set up really well ahead of time,
Mhm.
like weighing back and forth. Those are important
Mhm.
things. But for me in this situation, I've just decided, no, I'm going to launch this thing and it's okay. I can change the name after
Mhm.
formally and then let everyone know after. It's fine.
Yep. And Cheryl says yes. Cheryl likes what you just said. Absolutely. Yes. So
Cheryl gets it. She
Cheryl
knows.
does. She does. And I'm going to grab a couple things that you said and try to open the door to how to manage that if we can. So you just said, I love this. We get stuck in our logo. We think that it doesn't matter for other people, that when we get stuck in our own logo, for instance, which is a great example because it's part of our branding.
Mhm.
And I just want to say, from a marketing perspective, the opportunity there, if you don't let it hold you back. So let's say you launch your website but no logo. There's your opportunity to launch your logo and to announce, hey, I've got a new logo. What do you all think?
That's
Or
right.
even to come up with 3 versions and invite the audience to participate by telling you which one they like better. And then you use their information as a data point and go with the one you want that you envision.
Susan, so good. So good.
So, but I love that you brought up procrastination. When we're procrastinating, I'm not even saying it right. Procrastinating, we need to stop and be like, okay, what's going on with this? Right? This is how it's holding me back. So, and you started to talk about this. I want to push a bit more and say, how else are you making sure you're moving forward, despite the fact that you're working on this?
I've just decided to give myself a break on it. Like I know I'm going to change the name. I kind of think I know where I'm going to go
Mm-hmm.
to give myself room for now and into the future. And it doesn't have to be right before I launch, or I don't have to schedule things that, like, I can do it after. It's okay.
Nice, nice, yeah,
People
and
have bought things from me before under yourconsciousentrepreneur.com. It's okay.
yeah, it's going to work. It's not bad or wrong or a big block what it is, right? It's just not what you envision it being. Um, I had a thought. So, and one of the reasons let me back up here. One of the reasons I'm changing mine is because there's a mismatch between some of the programs I offer and the membership. And sometimes when somebody goes through one of my programs, it might make sense for them to come in the membership. So the membership is the Introverts Marketing Academy. And not long ago, I offered a blog course. But it wasn't a blog course for introverts, so it was kind of a mismatch. The people in the blog course are like, why are you offering me this introverts thing?
Right.
There needs to be a better connection. And it's not that the blog course was wrong, it's that the introverts part seemed too narrow. Right. I felt like it
Right.
wasn't necessarily, it might have been, square peg, round hole, but it also might have been really big square pegs, very small round hole. It was just kind of I need them to fit better so that the people coming in, and this is about funneling, right? This is about business funneling, bringing people into a program and going into the next thing that you offer. You need to make sure from the beginning that they're the right people. And what we name our business doesn't have to pinpoint them, but it can limit them if we're not careful. And that's what's kind of going on here with my programs.
Especially with introvert, it can be a little bit tricky because it's not like a standard definition. Like, a lot of
Yeah.
people see introverts in different ways. Like,
Mhm.
until maybe 5 years ago, I would have said I'm absolutely not an introvert. But then I recharge alone. I need to be alone to recharge. So
Yep.
perhaps I am an introvert, or I'm an ambivert, as you
Mhm.
said.
Yep.
So then there's so many people with different definitions of it that could make it, I could see it being tricky.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Is that for me? And when we think about, we're starting to bring in some of the things that we need that we should all be thinking about as we're naming our business. And when it comes to the name of your business, if it is in any way addressing the question, is this for me? So every person in the world is walking around going, is this for me? Is this for me? What's in this for me? And if the name that you've provided for your business or your program is speaking to who it's for, and the audience is thinking, is this for me? Are you answering that in a way that they resonate with? And if I'm using the word introvert or ambivert, and not everybody knows what I mean by that, or they have questions for themselves, we're missing that alignment, right? So I need to work around that. We've got a couple comments here. So Cheryl says, messy action, moving forward, not waiting or getting stuck in overthinking. So many things in there. Cheryl, you've got that. In fact, let me pop that up here really quick if I can. Let's see if I can. Can I pop that up here? Hey, look at that. Messy action, moving forward, not waiting or getting stuck in overthinking. I mean, that's very much the things, being okay with messy action, being okay with being in what I like to think of as the messy middle. And Will, yes, I can see you in the comments. So Will is over on LinkedIn. Hello. So welcome, Will. Glad to have you here. He says, I want to, let me see, I'm being all magical with my tech here and I'm popping things out. Oops, I'm moving the wrong things around. Hold on a second.
That's so good.
There we go. So Will says, I want to retain my company name because I'm lazy and don't want to market around the company name. I think I want to get stuck in my, oops, he went away, stuck in my logo and URL. What advice do you have for me? And something I pointed out that we both pointed out that this kind of came up earlier is there's the legal name that's off the books. There's your business name, URL, where people find you, and then there's your programs, right? And no matter what you're doing online, you don't have to change your legal name. That's a piece of this that we're not talking about. Your legal name is just your legal name. But did you catch his comment, Jen? You want me to put it back up there so you can speak to it at all?
Yeah, I did. What I was wondering is that what you're saying, Will? Like, you want to keep your formal business name, but you don't necessarily want to market to that formal business name. Is that what you're asking? Because in this case, that's what I'm going to do too, is the thing that I have registered legally, it's fine. It doesn't really matter. I mean, that's just going to be on people's receipts or whatever, and they can know that. But more the brand, that's what I want to resonate with people.
Yeah. One of the things
what you're marketing around, is that what you're saying? You want to market to what resonates with people, but not necessarily the company name?
Yeah, he says, yes, that's correct. That's what he's speaking to. Yep. And he says he thinks he wants to get stuck in his logo and URL. And it's really easy to do that. It's really easy to get stuck and be like, oh, these are important and I can't move on past them, but we need to. Right. Jen, do you have anything you want to say to him about getting stuck in his logo and his URL?
Some of my very first coaches, my first business coaches, one of them especially was just like, let's just throw tons of mud at the wall and see what sticks. And he was really like, okay with risk like that. And his advice for things is, who even cares about the name? Just create the actual, like the checkout page. Just create the checkout page, sell it. Don't even create it. Just tell them what's going to be about, sell it first. And then you talk to them and sell. Like, so can you be that uncomfortable to not have it that perfect ahead of time? I lie somewhere in between there. I wouldn't jump there. But certainly, for instance, I think I'm going to go back to using just my name as my brand. I own it. I used to call my business that. Then I changed it to this very specific entrepreneur name. I think I'm going to go back to it being just my name. But I don't feel I'm going to leave my business the same name that it is. I'm not going to go change it legally. That's still going to be the Conscious Entrepreneur. No need to do all of that paperwork, whatever. But my URL and maybe my logo, we'll see. I might change that a little bit more to make sure that everyone, it's just so that it speaks directly to them, which is where I had written down, I hope that we end up going.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. Everything you're saying, I love that actually that you're thinking about doing. So that's called a personal brand. When we, mine is Susan CZ. If you, Jen, go into Jen, Cincurak, that's what's known as a personal brand. And that is maximum flexibility, right? I used to be a communication coach, and it was part of an evolution of my business. I was a communication coach. I was doing email marketing. I was building websites. These are like all the journey that I went along. And having Susan CZ really allows that flexibility. I can go sell candles tomorrow, and who cares? Because it's just Susan CZ. It's what I become. It's how I design my brand. So there's that.
You see this a lot with big names too. I don't know if you all are affiliated or Denise Duffield Thomas. But, she became very, very popular. I won't say her full name. I don't know what kind of language we could use, but she had like a derogatory term with lucky.
Use it. Do it. We swear around here.
So her brand used to be luckybitch.com.
Okay.
And I think she got a lot of flack for that. But anyway, she grew very, very popular using that. And at some point then she decided to just go with Denise Duffield Thomas.
Yeah, and you see it, the bigger names, honestly, because they're selling on their names. And this leans into your face is your brand, no matter what you call it, especially if you're a smaller business where you've got 1 to 30 people in the company, you've got one face that is the brand. And if you name that face, you're just locking in and saying, yes. Now, if you think you're going to sell that business someday, that's not going to work, right? You've got to name it something else. So, but maybe you don't name the business. Maybe you're naming the product and you sell the product. Well, I wouldn't name a product after me, right? And that's something I want to get into. But we're going to go, our next topic that we're going to get into is going to be, hold on, let me find them. I want to talk a little bit more about transition, and then we're going to start rolling into how to rename a program and then rename a business. That's where we're headed. I'm telling Jen as much as I am telling everybody else who's watching.
Yeah.
Where are we going? But I want to grab these comments really quick because they're really helpful. Will has liked what you've been saying so far. He's saying that it's good to hear. And then he says, stuck to me is about making the new, let me pop this up here because that way I'm not just reading it to you. So there's that. Stuck to me is about making the new URL my brand, doing everything around the URL name is my goal. Good to hear about using your own name as I'm about to launch willshanecoaching.com. There it is.
Well done, Will.
There it is, right? And I just want to say, so you've got willshanecoaching.com. So that does lock him into coaching. But if he thinks for sure that he's always going to be a coach and that's his primary work, then that works just fine. And if he does shift his business away from coaching, he doesn't have to change literally his legal business name. He might just need to change the URL or come up with a new URL. Mm-hmm. So does that...
And also willshane.com might have been taken.
Yeah, actually, I know Will, and I'm pretty sure he has willshane.com. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Let us know, Will, if you've got Will Shane. So what do you think, Jen? Let's do this. Let's lean into Will here. What do you think about willshane.com versus willshanecoaching.com?
I agree with what you said, especially because you used to call yourself the comm or the communications
coach,
right?
Yeah. Yep.
So, Will, if you feel like, no, I know for sure I've been coaching for 20 years or 15 years and I know I'm going to be coaching into the future, great. Or whatever sort of business you're going to be doing, it's going to involve coaching and that feels really, really good to you. Again, coming from someone who thought I only ever want to talk to entrepreneurs, this is it. Just beware of that. And then I would say, great. But if you do own willshane.com and you think, no, there's other things I want to do, then you might want to consider that. Although I do want to say, if you have willshanecoaching.com and Will Shane, it's not that big of a deal to change down the road either. Like that's not too... They're very similar. People will get it.
Yeah. And often, you and I have talked about the length of a URL. We don't want it to be too long, but then again, people are often getting there by a click, right? Or that kind of thing. So they often aren't necessarily typing it in, or if they have to type it in, they're going to type it in once, and after that, it'll always show up. So that's not going to get in the way. But if he were to move, great example, if he were to move from Will Shane Coaching to something non-coaching, he'll probably need a new website anyway, and so he could conceivably create Will Shane. I mean, he might be, it's hard to say, but this is about future proofing a name with a name as much as you can, but you can only do so much because we can't read the future. We can only anticipate the likelihood of evolution and change.
I would feel really comfortable though between that change between Will Shane and Will Shane Coaching. Like that feels like small enough that I would feel really comfortable going with either of those names personally.
So, yeah, I agree with you. And so we're talking about personal branding here. Like I'm SusanCZ.com. You've got Jen, Cincurak.com. And he asked, this is a great question, how egotistical is it using only my name? And I have an answer, but I'm going to let Jen answer first. I'm working on my practicing of letting other people speak. Jen, what do you think?
I'm interested to hear what you have to think. My very first thought is that's your opinion. That's
Mhm.
like your belief around it, because never in a million years would that ever happen to cross my mind. But there's probably some things that I would judge where, Will, you'd be thinking, what is she saying that for? Like,
Mhm.
that would never cross my mind. So I'd say
Yeah.
that's a belief. That's just a small limiting belief, and you can completely eradicate that for yourself.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Jen. Those are fears speaking, but personal branding is a thing. When I want to say everyone's doing it, Amy Porterfield, huge name, and it's Amy Porterfield, but it just is how they find you. When it comes to things like egotistical versus branding, the thing I want to say here is it depends on how we put it out in the world. So it's going to depend on what you put on the website. If you create willshane.com, but then you're like, the whole website is like, I'm so great and I'm amazing, and you come off with this egotistical voice, then yeah, it's egotistical because it's an egotistical voice. But if you come up with a website that's like, I'm Will Shane and here's how I help you, that's serving.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's right.
So it's in the presentation. But I agree with Jen completely that if the thing stopping you from using your name, if the thing stopping anybody from going into a personal brand is the fear of judgment because they're daring to put their name out there, that is a limiting belief based on something that you're thinking that you haven't even given somebody else a chance to think, right? You're judging before you've even taken a step forward. And it really comes down to intention and voice, I think.
The other thing I wanted to say about using your name as your brand is Will Shane. Come on, what an amazing name to do as a personal brand. Like, they're both short and easy and fast to type in, easy to remember.
Mm-hmm.
This is partly why I changed mine, because Cincurak, oh, come on, it's long and they are C's and not S's, and it's from, Eastern Europe heritage and etc. It's a little more complicated. Susan CZ, great idea to shorten that name, because who's going to remember to put the J before the K and all of that? But
Yeah.
like you said, it is clickable. So,
yep. Yeah, I agree. I think the Will Shane name is also it's a power name. Those are both powerful words. I think that they work really well, and I think he's got an opportunity there. So, and Cheryl is saying everything that you said and I just said are resonating with her. She likes how we've said them and that they're great points. So thank you, Cheryl, for that feedback. It's great to know that we're still making some sense here. Always my question. Did that make sense?
Susan and I can talk a little too much, so we're trying to really make this useful to you and have some structure.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk a little bit more about transition, which is one of the things that we're talking about here. So when it comes to changing a business name, you're actually going through a transition, and every transition has a beginning and an end and a space in the middle that's called the liminal space. And it just is this messy middle, and that's where Jen and I both are as we're talking about this. We haven't made it all the way to the end of this particular transition, which makes it a juicy topic for both of us. Oh, all these things about what it takes to make a transition. And it sounds like Will is in a similar place where you're tossing things back and forth. And the question I asked Jen about not just how is changing a name holding you back, but how are you moving forward, is asking, like, how are you negotiating that liminal space and making sure that even as you're in this business or brand transition, that you're still moving forward with the business, that you're still moving forward with the program. One of the ideas that Jen suggested to me that I've sat in is giving my program a temporary name. Just being like, let's call it Spaghetti on the Wall, like you brought up before. Let's call it something that is just like a default neutral name. And even then I was like, but what's the right default neutral name? Oh my God. Yeah, I couldn't not get stuck. So
yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah. It's so easy to hold on to and just be like, but it matters. And names do matter because we are going to refer to it. It's not join my program, it's join my name program. We need them to want to be in there, and the name does matter to some extent. So
I just want to remind everyone.
I just moved things. Hold on. What did I just move? Oh, there you go. We're back. Sorry.
I just want to remind everyone that Marie Forleo's B School used to be rich, happy, and hot. Seriously. So that was the first name of B School before she changed it over. Rich, Happy, and Hot. And then it was like RH2 or RH, whatever. So it's okay to call your
Interesting.
program one thing and to change it as you change. Mhm.
Yes, and programs evolve, especially if you present them over time, right? So yeah, that makes so much sense. So much sense. I like that. I didn't know that actually. That's really exciting to know. See, even those big names that we know about have gone through this journey. That's what it's all
Absolutely.
about. So, oh, Cheryl says she did know that. And going back before we go forward, Will said, "Good advice. I won't be egotistical. It's all about content and value to my clients." And that, Will, is what's going to help you serve and help it work. And then Cheryl says she agrees about how things are said makes a difference. Welcome, James Pruitt, over on Facebook. Great to have you here. So the question that I've got, we had a question that we wanted to ask about. Well, actually, let me ask you this: for everybody watching, live or in the recording, how important do you think names are? Do you think they're really important? Do you think they don't matter? Or is it someplace in the middle? How important do you think these names that we have for our businesses and our programs are? Because I think we all respond like our names are 12, in importance from a scale of 1 to 10. But are they really? What do you think? How important are they? I'd love to know in the comments. So I'm moving us forward. When it comes to identifying the name of your program, not your business, your program, what are some guidelines that we're following that we can suggest to other people? Jen, what for you are some of the guidelines?
So I think these are some guidelines I like to follow, whether I'm naming a program or a brand or whatever. Although kind of funny, I'm using my name for the brand. But I think you want to think about who it is that you're serving, your avatar, and think about what's the feeling you want them to have, having used your product or engaging with your business.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you can get behind the feeling with what the need is. So if you just ask yourself, okay, if I get that, then what do I have? So let's say, like, I want my people to feel, I don't know, achieved or accomplished, or like as an entrepreneur, you're helping them out. You want them to be able to take action. Okay, so then what happens if they take action? They feel proud or confident. Okay, so maybe, like, is there anything behind, if they have confidence, what will they have? And maybe they'll say, I'll have freedom, or maybe they'll say, I have peace. But once you get to that final point where you can't go further back anymore, it's the last thing that's
Mm-hmm.
there, then you know, okay, that may very well be the need that you're meeting or that
Mm-hmm.
they're having met. I think this goes both ways too, to have that in mind. It doesn't have to be in the words of what you're naming, whatever it is you're naming, but to have in mind for yourself too, like, what do you want to feel running this program, creating this thing? Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we can push ourselves and be like, no, this is what the coaches or the whoever says I need to do, and I have to launch this thing, or I have to do it this way. And then we do it feeling pressure, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to whatever the real need or the feeling is that we want to have met, that will make us feel fulfilled and like we want to move forward.
Yeah, I have to say, this was last week. You asked me this question. You were like, "But Susan, how do you want them to feel when they're done going through the program?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, how do I want them to feel?" That's a great question, and came up with this whole list of, feeling insightful, feeling empowered, feeling energized, feeling like things are possible. Right? Suddenly getting this, it really was a question that moved me forward in mine. It's one of the reasons I really love that we are friends and colleagues, because I feel like we both move each other forward with these wonderful coaching questions. And that's a powerful thing, I think, to recognize what the emotion is. I love that what you're saying, not just for them, but for us, right? How do we want to feel about this program? And I think one of the things that I want to say, this is ubiquitous. I want to say everybody feels this way. We want to feel proud of what we're putting out in the world. We want to feel like we can stand behind it and say, this is for you, this, and I am proud of this thing that I'm helping you with. And what we name something isn't just will it resonate with them, it's also we're happy to say this word or this collection of words. We're going to say it in a way that we know
Mm-hmm.
is going to sound confident and that we have some joy in it ourselves. I think that's important, and that's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. That's
I
good.
think anyone who's following you, Susan, they want to have contributed something.
Tell me a little
And
bit.
there's that, yeah.
Tell me a little bit
You
more.
want to contribute to the world, make the world a better place in whatever way, shape, or form
Mm-hmm.
your business does or what you do does. And if you answer those questions, you will have that feeling in you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're right. A lot of my members have missions and things like that, things that they're beauty that they're bringing to the world. Or I have one member specifically who's, saving the world one piece of furniture at a time, basically. Things like that. And it's wonderful mission based work to make the world a better place. And I think you're right. Having that purpose behind our businesses brings joy. Can we bring that into the names? Right. I think that's really important stuff. So I like what you're saying. We've got some answers here, by the way. Will says he thinks names are very valuable on a scale of 1 to 10. They're an 11. And Cheryl says program names help the customer know if it's for them. And that's a key point, I think, Cheryl, is we want to name something that is going to resonate with the people for whom it is and for who it serves. There's a sentence in there somewhere. One of the things that I lean into when it comes to naming a program, not necessarily a business, and this is a distinction that I like to make, is when we name a program, we need to name, I think we need to, it's helpful to name that program based on the outcome. And it's easy to name it on the process or the problem. But if we name it the outcome, we're doing some future casting and offering some possibility. And that, I think, is one of the better things that we can do if we can name it just right, is to focus on that outcome. What are your thoughts, Jen?
The first thing I thought of was, like, can you imagine doing a weight loss program that was called, I don't know, exercising and counting calories? Or, I don't know, you're unhappy with your weight.com? Like, it just, that sounds so arduous. Like, why would you ever want to join for something that's like how to count calories? No.
Yeah.
You want the outcome. So for sure. I know that's a really
it's
in your face.
It actually leans into, I've got another example that's right in line with it. And actually, Cheryl, who's been talking to us, is a health coach. So that's going to resonate with her in a big way.
So you're find it very funny.
Yeah. She's like, amen. But I belong to a program called, it's an online program for budgeting, and it's called youneedabudget.com. It's known as YNAB amongst the people who use it. YNAB, the initials of You Need a Budget. But you're right. It's about the process, not about the solution. And so the name itself doesn't sell the program because, budget. Everyone's like, budget. Dear God, please. But
a budget actually could be the result too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it gives you a budget. And being part of that program has helped me shift my belief system about budgets and learn how to use one. I've been using this program for like 3 years. It's fantastic. But, and it's known, in its particular industry. But does that name sell? YouNeedABudget.com? No. But it doesn't have to. It's still very popular. And I'm just saying, yes, I agree. Names are important, but they aren't everything. Mm-hmm. And they don't have to be perfect to work. That's what I think. What do you think, Jen?
Oh, I 100% agree. That's why I'm just moving forward.
Yeah.
I have been thinking so much about what if I change my name to this and what if I change my name to that. And I literally just decided a couple of days ago, no, I think I'm just going to go back to using my name because I really can debate this forever. And I don't need this to hold me back. Like what I'm going to offer to people, it's going to help them out whether the name is slightly this way or that. And what Cheryl said is important. You definitely want to speak to the audience, and especially with a program name, you want them to feel that way. But I could just see that it was going to hold me back and that it was going to become another thing. And I don't have time for that.
Yeah, I'm the same way. That's why one of the reasons I went to Susan CZ is I was like, this is easy. I can just do this and keep moving on. So I have to say that I almost tried to find a way to do Susan with a Z. Because I was always referred to, especially when I was in personal training for a number of years, and everyone would come up to the desk looking for me, and they'd be like, "Susan with a Z, do you know where she is?" And that was like had become my name. But the Susan CZ just made a lot more sense. James Pruitt, by the way, loves YNAB. All right, for YNAB, it's a great program. It's good. So my next question is, when it comes to naming a business, I've got my notes over here in case anyone's wondering. Do you have any additional thoughts? We're naming a business rather than a product. Anything we want to come into with guidelines? What do you think, Jen?
I still feel that you want to do the needs and the feelings. You don't have to include it in the name, but you just want to know what you want to evoke for them and for yourself beforehand.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's really 1,000,001 different guidelines out there. Like if you Google it, there's going to be, I don't know, 30,000 formulas that come up that you can just fill in the slots for
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z. But for me, over the time, I've realized I want it to be I wanted to meet those deeper needs for me. So one of the examples that I was thinking of is, for instance, you and I were talking about this before we hit the live button, is Pat Flynn, for instance. He does smart passive income. But a long time ago, I don't know, 5 years ago or something, he did like a little experiment where he decided, okay, I'm going to teach you all how to find a business and launch it and start from zero and see how it goes. And so he founded something that was like teaching people how to open a food truck, something like that. I don't remember what it was called. I'm sure he did lots of SEO around it to find the perfect name, but he launched it, and then you could watch him grow over time. And that's lovely that he did that and it fit his brand. But if it was really unfulfilling and it felt like it didn't represent who I don't know, who I wanted to help, or the feeling I wanted them to get at the end, or the feeling I wanted to have, like, I could never write about food trucks or do that as an example, just because it was a niche that was unfulfilled that I knew could do well. So I'm not saying no one should do that. If that feels really good to you, being able to do that, and it's more about the pride of being able to do that or that accomplishment, wonderful. And that might be your need and feeling that you're meeting there. But for me, I'd need to feel a little bit more personally attached than that. So just to think about those things, that would still be what I would suggest.
Nice. And we need to think about these as a hierarchy. There's, like, in the Pat Flynn example, there's the smart passive income, and then what is he doing under that? All these different things that fall under it, right? And again, it goes to the flexibility. And if you don't name it after yourself, then you name it, something still that's a little bit vaguer that you can work with, if you can, to some extent, to give yourself that room, creating space for evolution in the future. I think that matters a lot. And it's about encompassing what you're doing now with room for where you might evolve. And everybody's different. How much do you evolve? I know that I can change. I can flip things upside down and be incredibly happy. I want to make sure that it incorporates that if I do decide to switch. And I did. It was, five or more years ago, I literally was doing only email marketing. And then now that is a subset of what I do. It's a very strong subset, but I still do, like, marketing strategy with that in there. And that mindset stuff that I bring in, is different from here's another thing I wanted to bring in is, how are you different from other people who do the same thing you do? Is there something in there that you can bring in, if not in the name, certainly in the tagline, or in, how are you incorporating, what is your special sauce? What is the special thing you bring to the table? I don't just do marketing, I just do I do mindset and marketing. And we often lead in through mindset. And I approach marketing from a communication standpoint, because marketing is, in the end, just communication. So, not just, it is communication. But knowing that about yourself, if you can bring that in, it's going to be that much more powerful. So
I want to add one more thing to that, which is an unless, or a caveat, which is, unless you want to have different sites, like unless you're the type of person who wants to have, like, I have a site that just does reviews for skincare products, and then I do a completely different site that does reviews for, I don't know, nootropics or some, people who want to have better brain power through supplements, that sort of thing. So that could be like, you want a niche, and you love doing affiliating and that sort of thing. But that's like, your broader business was, this is what I do, and then you have these websites that you specifically do that under.
Exactly. And so, like, your homepage might even say, okay, go over here for this, go over here for this, go here for this. And then you might have additional sites or single pages, that kind of thing. So yeah, that makes sense. And you've got to look at the structure of your business when you're thinking about, how do these puzzle pieces fit together? I think that's what we're saying in a lot of ways. So nice. So just to recap some of the things that I think fall under naming your business, as much as, and Jen, you said these things, I'm just grabbing them off of my notes, honestly, is that we also need to think about the emotions we're evoking, the needs that we're serving. Can some of that stuff come in, as long as that, from a business name perspective, is going to continue to be in there. So awesome. Jen, this has been a fantastic conversation. I've loved having you on here. I hope you'll join me again sometime. Can you tell everyone where they can find you online?
Okay, well, right now, it's still yourconsciousentrepreneur.com, which is a mouthful, which is also partly why I'm changing it. And then it will be jencincurak.com, and you see my name underneath there.
Fantastic. And I want to say thank you to everyone for joining us. We have Cheryl, James, Will, Dr. Elo has joined us as well. Hey, Dr. Elo, good to have you here. This has been a great conversation. We'll be paying attention to the chat as well when we're done. So if anybody, even watching the recording, has any comments, please say something, and we'll be happy to chat with you. If you've got a question, put it up there. If you have some thoughts, please share them. Thank you again, Jen, for being here. Love having you here. I will be back again next Thursday, every Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. I hope you all will join me, and I will see you again soon. Wave bye.
Thank you, Susan. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.